I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be attracting what you fear. Well, you may have heard me say before in the past, what you fear, you attract, when what you look at disappears. And I got a quote I want to talk about, which is from Deepak Chopra. It's a great quote that I love. He says, what you seek, you already are. And so obviously I got an email here from a viewer, and I always find it fascinating how fear affects people. And a big reason why I do so many of these videos answering questions from people like all kinds of different topics is because the way I look at it is if I approach a problem from 1,000 different angles. I mean, every single person that writes me, their story's a little bit different. The things they do and say are a little bit different, but yet the fears tend to be similar. And a lot of times their reactions become similar. But the idea is the more different scenarios I can expose you to that other people are in currently or are making mistakes in, you can learn from their mistakes. So, because obviously I can only include so many examples in a book. And this way, by answering all kinds of questions from people all over the world, you get a real good idea of a picture of the entire puzzle, so to speak, to help you make decisions. So it's in essence as if, even though you're not going through the stories that these other people are going through, you can learn from their mistakes. You can gain wisdom from their fuck-ups. Because it's like, I know in my own life, the biggest thing that's taught me in any area of my life that I want to improve is always my mistakes. And so whenever something happens or something goes sideways or things don't go the way I expect, I always want to look at it and try to learn from it and ask myself good quality questions. You know, the quality of your life is going to be in direct proportion to the quality of the questions that you consistently ask yourself. And so if no matter what happens in your life, if you're always going, well, what's good about this? How can this help me? How can I use from this? How can I learn from this? How can I become a stronger person because of what's just happened? How can I adapt these particular circumstances and use it to my own advantage? Because you're always, when you come from that kind of mindset, you're always going to see the glass is half full as opposed to half empty. You know, you get what you focus on in life. And so he says, hey, Coach, I met this particular girl and we dated in high school, but we were more like best friends. And 30 years later, we see each other again, and at this particular time, we're both married, and so we're each with our spouses. Well, a few months later, we talk and we find out that both of us happen to be separated. What a coinkydink. He says we start seeing each other as friends, which turns into a torrid love affair. So things started off real hot and heavy. You had 30 years of sexual tension. Because you always wonder about those loves when you're younger and they don't really work out for whatever reason. In the back of your mind, you're always going, what if? What if I'd have done different? What if I'd have known then what I know now? But in this particular case, this guy got to experience this. And so you'll see this a lot. You'll see guys get together with a girl, and things start off real hot and heavy. He starts pursuing, she starts pursuing. Because like I talk about in my book, you can use very low-risk things to put yourself out there without really risking any rejection. So by the time you get to the point you're asking for a phone number or asking a girl for a date, you already pretty much know she's going to say yes. And it's totally possible to meet a girl on the spot, have your first date right on the spot, and then pretty much after that, always be together. That's what I experienced in my book, my girlfriend Katie, who I wrote about. That's exactly what that relationship was like. And all of the relationships I've had since then, it's just an instant connection. So it's like once you overcome all your rough edges, once you overcome all of the fears, the things that keep you or that cause you to feel uncentered or feel like you got to do something, you got to make something happen with a girl, instead of just hanging back, chilling out, and focusing on your life, it's like the more practice you have and you smooth off those rough edges, so to speak. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, when you're looking to be in a relationship with a woman, what is it you're really seeking? I mean, think about it. Think about at the deepest level. So you get into a relationship, you have a great time with a girl. So what does that mean? You're going to feel good. You're going to feel happy. You're going to feel content. You're going to feel a sense of peace, a sense of well-being. So in a way, you could look at being with a woman or being in a relationship as what you're really seeking is you're seeking to make your life more peaceful, more balanced, more relaxed, and more of the kinds of things that you want in your life. Because at the end of the day, that's what a relationship does. It just adds value to our lives. It makes us feel better. It gives us companionship. It gives us a sense of peace and contentment because you no longer feel like you're lacking something outside of yourself. Just like the quote that I share with Deepak Chopra, what you seek, you already are. And so I say this all the time, over and over, is that you don't want to focus on the other person as the reason for your success or your happiness, because when you do that, your identity becomes associated with that person. And then if things look like the future of your relationship's in doubt, or you're not going to be together with that person again, since your whole identity is associated with that person, now you don't feel like yourself anymore. Now you don't feel like you're whole and complete, because now since that person's not in your life, now you feel like a part of you is lacking, so to speak. And one other thing I also say all the time is that you get together with somebody in a relationship to share your completeness, not to complete one another. And so there's a part where two people come together, just like I wrote about my book with my girlfriend Katie when I met her. It was the first relationship I ever had with a girl where we met and we were pretty much always together after that. Because I didn't have any doubt or any fear about how much to pursue or how much to back off. I just naturally acted that way, and I created a space where she could come towards me, and since there was no weakness, there was no doubt, there was no fear, there was no BS, neither one of us held back. So we both wanted to be with one another, and I created a space where it allowed her to come to me at her own pace. And so as the weeks and months went by, she pursued me more and more, and we spent more and more time together. And it didn't matter when I called her, or how often I called her, or how often I talked. Everything just happened naturally, and it was easy. And like I said, this is where you can get to in your life, to where the relationship part of your life is not something that's bringing you constant stress. But it takes time to get to that point. He says, so basically they have this great torrid love affair, so they're hooking up all the time together. And then he says, best friends, soulmates, best sex ever. And this tells me now that's what he's focusing on, because now he's starting to project his high interest onto her and assume that she feels the same level of attraction and desire for him that he does for her. And when that starts to happen, that's when, because the guy, his identity is me and her together. And since his identity is her and him together, he doesn't think about the possibility of the two of them not being together. And so when she starts to back off, since he's now associated his identity with it, he thinks, oh my God, something's going wrong here. I got to fix something. Let me chase, let me pursue. And it's like it happens gradually over time. Whereas you both were hanging out, having fun, hooking up, and having a great time together, she starts to back off just slightly. And then that gap, he starts to move in a little bit more, and then she backs off a little bit more, and then he pursues more, and it just becomes a vicious cycle. So he says we love everything about each other. At least that's what he thinks. So he says, my divorce only takes 6 months. Hers drags on for a year and a half. All the while, we are totally in love, constant communication, etc. And I would say more than likely, you thought you were probably in love, obviously, at that point. But the thing is women fall in love quick. They fall in love slowly, but they also fall out of love slowly over time. But just because it's like when I first started dating Katie. When we first got together, she wasn't head over heels in love with me. I mean, it took a couple of months for her to get to that point where she felt like that, even though we spent a tremendous amount of time together, because we met at a seminar. We hung out for the 4 or 5 days that we were together during the seminar. And then I think it was about 3-4 weeks later, she came to visit me in the States for, I think it was 2.5 weeks. And so she stayed at my house. And so we were together 24/7 the whole time. I took her to the airport. She left. And I think like a month later, she came back. And then that time she was there for about 2 months. And we were together 24/7. So by the second time she came back, that's when the real deep love and bond formed between us. But it was just because I created that space and allowed her to come to me without fearing like she was gonna, there wasn't even a hint that she may possibly lose her freedom in the relationship. Just like I say, you got to love the other person in such a way that they feel free. So he says, the day her divorce became final, she started being secretive. She started hanging out with another guy. Then she told me that she needed a date and then I was too controlling and needy, which I was. See, he admits, that's good. Because obviously the first part of fixing your bad behavior is admitting where you fucked up. So he says now she's on Match.com and Chemistry.com while telling me that she loves me. Well, she probably loves you as a friend at this point. He says she slept with a friend, this other guy apparently, while drunk. And he says, I can't really trust her anymore. All of a sudden she's in love with her ex-husband since he got a new hot girlfriend. And I've made every mistake by trying too hard. We're not intimate very often, and she sometimes ignores me for a few days, and then she can't wait to see me. He says, I love her, and I guess he says he's loved her since the 10th grade, and now we're 50. So he says, what should I do now? Well, here's the thing. When she ignores you for a few days, if you send her a text or you leave a message, you got to wait for her to get back to you. That's a common mistake I see a lot of guys doing, especially older guys, is they get in these situations and they just start chasing, they just start pursuing. And remember, it's a scientific fact that women are more attracted to men whose feelings are unclear. And when you're chasing a girl and you're blowing her phone up like that, you never give her the space for her feelings for you to develop. She's got to have that time and that space away from you, because in that time away from you, that's when she gets to feel your strength. That's when she gets to feel and contemplate the possibility that your life is going to go on and just as wonderful today and as wonderful in the future as it's been all along, no matter whether or not she's in your life or not. But when you constantly blow up a girl's phone, or you leave a message and then she doesn't call you back right away, and then you keep chasing, or you go out and then she's not as open to sex, what's happening is you're pursuing too much. The ratio that always works the best is 70 to 80% of the calling, texting, and pursuing needs to be done by her. And so what I would do in your particular case is to back off, wait to hear from her. When you hear from her, hey, great to hear from you. Why don't we get together, meet up for a drink, or why don't you grab a bottle of wine, come on over to my place, make dinner together, just something really simple. And then allow her to start coming back to you slowly at that point. And then once she starts coming back, it's like you should initiate contact no more than once per week, and you set one date, and then you get the hell off the phone. Because another thing you probably have done, because you figure, hey, we're 50, we've known each other all our whole lives, is that you spend a ton of time talking to her on the phone. And then there are times, and I know how it is because you want to talk to her, but it's like you don't want to be rude, you don't want to end the conversation because you don't want to feel like you're not being there for her. But the problem is that when you do that, is that you end up staying on the phone when you really don't want to talk anymore. And so now you're not being congruent. In essence, that's pleaser energy. Because now you're staying in the phone call when you don't really want to because you think it's what she wants. And the more you do that, the more you prostitute yourself, the more you do things that don't feel right because you think it's what it's going to make her happy, the more she's going to see that, the more she's going to take advantage of that, the more she's going to back away, and the more problems that you're going to have in the relationship. So pull back, wait to hear from her, make a date, get off the phone, and when you're hanging out together, hang out, have fun, and hook up. And it really doesn't, it's none of your business, these other dudes that she's dating and hooking up with, because, she's with this person another period of time, and she went through a messy divorce, and so what you got to understand is she's going to be worried about losing her freedom, because she basically just got it back, especially after having a divorce that drug on the whole time. And with you acting like the way you're acting, you're in essence basically making her feel the same way that her ex-husband did. And it's the same thing. You're making her feel like she can't have, or that she's losing her freedom, and that's why she backs away from you. So I would encourage you to go to my website, and underneath the email sign-up box, there's a box that has a link that'll take you right to the Kindle download page. And you don't have to have a Kindle device to read my book. Once you get there, if you don't have a Kindle device, just download one of their free e-reader apps to read my book on whatever electronic device you want to read it on. And if you want to talk to me right away, the quickest way to get my help is to book a paid phone coaching session. You can do that by going to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and I will talk to you soon.